weeks ago, you all came into this courtroom not knowing what kind of case you might be selected to serve on the jury.
Please keep your voice up.
Yes, sir. About 3 weeks ago, you all came to this courtroom and you sat through the jury selection process without any idea what kind of a case you were going to maybe be selected to sit in, listen to. No doubt this has not been an easy case for anyone in this courtroom, but everyone in this courtroom owes each of you a true debt of gratitude for your service, for your attention, and for your thoughtfulness throughout this process. I want to talk with you all a little bit about what I said to you at the very beginning of this trial. I told you that this is a case about responsibility and accountability. Now that you've heard all the evidence in this case, you can see that this defendant is a man who abdicated all responsibility. As the captain of a ship owes to each one of his passengers. Now, done safely, of course, boating can be a lot of fun, and we know that. Look at the pictures that we have. We have so much evidence in this case. You have you all saw the photograph that Andy Fernandez took from his boat, looking across to the defendant's boat, where the teenagers are on the boat, they're in the water. What a great time. What a special day. That photograph was taken because Andy Fernandez was taken with how special it was that his teenage daughter said, "Mom, Dad, come on out to the sandbar." He really didn't want to. Thank God he did. Thank God he did. When voting is done safely, what a wonderful thing to do. But when people like this defendant do not take seriously their responsibility to their own passengers and to other boaters and passengers that might be in the area, disaster and catastrophe can happen. And though it may seem obvious, I wanted to highlight for you in this trial that boat crashes are a lot different than car crashes. When you're on a boat, you're basically like someone in the back of a pickup truck. On boats, you don't have the benefit of brakes, not even anti-lock brakes. You don't have seat belts. You don't have a steel cage surrounding you to protect you from impacting other objects. There's no airbags. And if, God forbid, something should happen and you fall out of that boat, you jump out of that boat, you're ejected from that boat, you run the risk of drowning, even if the injuries that you sustained weren't that serious. And we know that to be true because that's exactly what happened to Lucy Fernandez. Now, in this case, you have evidence beyond any reasonable doubt that this defendant disregarded basic navigational rules and concepts of safety, and he did so in a manner that made it a near certainty that tragedy would result. This tragedy, the death of Lucy Fernandez, was completely preventable. But after this abdication of duty that this defendant owed to his own daughter, to his wife, and to those 11 other teenage girls, these 13 other souls that were on his boat, what did he do? He lied over and over and over again about what happened. Why? To shift the blame away from himself and in an avoidance of accountability. That's why I told you at the beginning of this case, this is a case about responsibility or the lack thereof, and accountability and the complete lack thereof. So let's talk about what was happening on that Sunday. It's Labor Day, it's Biscayne Day. There's a little more boat traffic out there than usual because it's a holiday weekend. The defendant and his wife decide they're hosting a birthday celebration that weekend for their daughter who was going to be turning 18. That morning, some of the girls watched Mass on TV. We're talking still back in 2022. We're just kind of starting to come out of the pandemic. After that, pickleball tournament sponsored by the defendant. The girls, the defendant, tennis, pickleball, what a fun day. Knowing that the next thing they're going to do is go out to Billy's Point, go out to that sandbar. So everybody boards George Pino's boat to go party at the sandbar. And boy, what a party that was going to be, huh? They brought food, sure. The defendant's wife said, oh yeah, and my husband packed the drinks. Ooh, what drinks? Beer, alcoholic seltzers, Prosecco, Chambord. Not just for the Pinos, for everybody. The kids, other people that they're going to meet up with. What a great time for these teens, huh? How irresponsible. But, you get out to the sandbar, and what happens? Well, the defendant going out to that sandbar, you heard from Paul Albert, navigational expert, GPS expert, that when he went out to the sandbar, he goes relatively at a mild pace, not really at breakneck speed, and he kind of meanders in and out of the canal, out of the channel, which Mr. Albert told you is consistent with, navigating around other boats, things of that nature, until they get to where they're going to drop anchor. But they don't stay there because one of the other boats, as Mr. Fernandez told you, was too big to drop anchor there. So they go a little bit further north, and that's where they all stop. And they're there for almost 3 hours. What are they doing? People are drinking, they're socializing, they're swimming, they're listening to music, they're dancing. A lot of these 17-year-old girls were drinking alcohol that the defendant provided. You heard from Cammie, the first passenger who testified in this trial. She had consumed 10 alcoholic beverages. 10! I submit to you that as the fun and the drinks were flowing, the defendant kind of lost track of time. And he suddenly realizes, oh my goodness, it's getting to be close to 6:30. I've got to get all these people back to Ocean Reef. And everybody's got to get fixed up, glammed up for the party. Now, we heard testimony that the house that they were stationed at was like a 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom house. Conservatively speaking, that means 4 girls per bathroom getting ready for the party that he had spent almost $2,000 for. So it makes sense that the GPS data that Mr. Albert showed us on the way back, he's making a beeline. He's not making all those trap points. He's not deviating from course. He's in the mindset of like, set it and forget it. Get back to Ocean Reef as quickly as you can. So, literally, with a boat full of buzzed teenagers, if not drunk teenagers, this man decides to set a course heading to that channel. A channel that he has gone through time and time again. A channel he knows where those markers are. In a boat that there's a stipulation between the state and the defense, an agreement. The boat was in fine working condition. There's nothing wrong with that boat. And he knows the specifications of that boat. He'd had it since 2020. So, with that boat, with those 10 girls at the bow of that boat, with an extra 1,000 pounds on that boat, at the front of that boat, he makes a beeline. And you heard from Mr. Albert, in order to reach the speeds that we see from the GPS, with that amount of weight on the boat, he was going full throttle. Full throttle. with all these teenagers on board that had been consuming alcohol as fast as he can through a narrow channel. Because if other boats want to go through that channel, if he's in the wrong way, then they've got nowhere to go. Because if they go outside the channel, they'll run aground. So with all of that going on, he decides to travel down the wrong side of the channel as fast as he can. We know that right before impact, he's going 47 miles per hour. Now, it's kind of a silly thing, but I think most people have seen folks, driving the cars and put their hand out the windshield or out the window and kind of feel the air over your arms. We take for granted in driving that it's not that fast because we have windshields. But if you didn't have that windshield, if you were on a nice paved road, if you were on a bumpy road, 47 miles an hour is lightning fast. And the reason why you saw those reenactments is because we wanted you, in as safe a way, but as realistic a way as possible, to understand the manner in which that man decided to operate his boat. Now, I talked about the teens that were buzzed. The defendant, for sure, consumed alcohol. The defense would have you believe that it was only the 2 beers that the defendant told Lieutenant Thompson. I'm going to submit to you that maybe the evidence suggests that just as he wasn't exactly truthful about how the crash happened, maybe he also wasn't so truthful about how much alcohol he had consumed. This defendant knew the channel. He knew that vessel. He knew the people on the vessel. He knew what they'd been doing on that vessel. Yet he chose, before this impact happened, to put his vessel on a heading 5 degrees to port, 5 degrees to the east. And that put him on a collision course with channel marker 15. And sure enough, by the time he realizes, oh no, it's too late. How did this crash happen? I'll tell you. Because he was reckless. He was criminally negligent. No one but this defendant captained that boat. No one but this defendant decided the speed that it should travel. And no one but this defendant decided the direction of travel. No one and nothing is responsible for the death of Lucy Hernandez, except for that man sitting right there. He is the reason why she is dead. Let's talk about that journey a little bit more. These photos, states 3 and 10, which are in evidence. We see in number 10, a bunch of young girls having a great time. In number 3, we see that photograph that Andy Fernandez took. What a fun, happy day. Is it worse? suit with the little flowers? That's Lucy. Birthday girl. Yeti tumbler. Lucy's necklace. We know from exhibits 11 and 106, which are in evidence, that Lucy was seated here in the diagram number 9, right in front of where the defendant was at the helm. And we know that this is the seat that Lucy sat in, where it has her name. You all saw it for yourselves. You all had the opportunity to go on that vessel, the vessel that turned out to be almost a gravesite for a 17-year-old little girl, because she was still a kid. That's where she sat. And that's where, when this recreation was done with FWC, with the assistance of Mr. Albert, someone sat in that very seat and filmed the route that that man took. Coming up on 13 and then 13A. Louis. 15. That's traveling at about the same speed that we know this defendant was traveling through that channel. Let's look at something again. You may remember that when I played these videos for you during the trial, I would stop the video just about at the point where it looks like the vessel is going to impact that channel marker. And then I asked Mr. Albert, who was sitting here, okay, so if that impact is, let's say we have 4 seconds left. What's 4 plus 9? Oh, no, that would be 13. Why was I asking that? Because what we know from the GPS reconstruction of this crash, that 9 seconds prior to impact, the defendant chose to change the heading of his vessel slightly to the left, or in nautical terms, to the right. And when he made that choice, that's when he put himself and all of those teenagers on a path toward near certain tragedy. He was the one that made that choice. And for 9 seconds, they were on that path. And, you say, 9 seconds, how long can that be? Well,